Hey Absolites. Challenge runs are a lot of fun. I've been trying to do more of them, but I haven't played through Ho in a while. I've been focusing on Kanto more than I like to. So let's do one that I have somehow never done, but I'm really excited for. Today we figure out, can I beat Pokemon Emerald with only my favorite Pokemon out there, Absol. Absol is a really interesting Pokemon, but in Gen 3, its stats really betray it. By far, the best stat on it is physical attack, but this is Gen 3. All dark moves are special, because the Gen 4 physical special split is yet to happen. But its stats also set up it to use a lot more physical moves than special. And in addition to that, what is this moveset? Absol's level up moveset is incredibly lackluster. It doesn't learn a single Dark-type damaging move until level 21. Its TM move pool is better, but not good. I'm not actually sure that I'll even have a stab move when I finish this run. Regardless, the rules for this challenge are very simple. I can only use Absol in battle. I'll need other Pokemon for HMs, but I can't use any of those Pokemon in battle. No items in battle, but held items and items outside of combat are allowed. Lastly, I can't use any glitches or exploits. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join the Absolite fam! And let's get started. Right off the bat, I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Trico with Absol so that we can do the whole run with it. I picked to replace Trico so that our rival will have Combusken, which is likely the hardest for us to fight. Our nature is docile, so we don't have any stat changes. I think that's probably good because I don't want one of my stats to be lowered when my only Pokemon has better physical than special, but has special stab moves. On my way to Roxanne, I encountered a Ralts as my very first encounter in that area. It's so incredibly rare that I had to try and catch it. I can't actually use it in battle, but it's good to have anyway. Now, it's time for Roxanne. I first challenged her at level 16. She crushed me. We traded blows, Quick Attack from me, Rock Tomb from her, but she resists normal, so I eventually lost to her. I tried again at level 18. I spammed Razor Wind, a 2-turn 80 power move, and I got past her first Geodude, but her second went and brought me down. I tried again at level 21 after grinding specifically for Nincada and Whismur for defense and HP EVs respectively, so that I can live more of her rock moves. I swept her 2 Geodudes with 1 bite each, but her Nose Pass was more annoying. I kept getting her to low health, but she kept using a potion, until eventually I got just the right rolls that I won. Brawly time. I used Razor Wind, but he did almost half my health on the charging turn, so for his Meditite, I switched to using Bite. However, Bite didn't OHKO, and he used a potion. That kept happening, so I used Razor Wind, and thankfully, he didn't outspeed. Last is Makuhita, and I used Bite again, but it didn't do much, and I tried to use Razor Wind, but before I could, he took me down. Nothing more happened until eventually I just got lucky with his Makuhita using non-damaging moves, and I managed to beat him. The fight with May under Cycling Road was annoying. Wrinkle went down easily, but I was worried about Combusken's fighting moves, so I set up Swords Dance, thinking that it also did defense rather than +2 attack. That ended up, well, I thought it ended up being merited, because I thought it raised defense, but it doesn't, so it turns out that was actually useless. But whatever. Regardless though, Double Kick got me to way lower health than I'm comfortable with. I thought about using Razor Wind to take advantage of the attack boost, but I decided not to because of how long it would take. I wasn't sure I could actually live that long. I used Bite, but it did not do much, and she used Focus Energy. I then used Razor Wind, but before it went off, I went down to Double Kick. I tried again, and this time, I did much better. I set up 3 Swords Dances on her Wingull before taking it out with Bite. I used Razor Wind right away on Combusken, and easily lived a Double Kick. Razorwind fired off and took down Combusket. Following that, Wombre went down to a single bite. At level 31... Oh dear Helix, I am so incredibly overleveled. I tried Watson. I set up Double Team on his Voltorb, and it used Self-Destruct, and then I set up 2 more on his Electrike. Then I took it down with Bite. Next is Magneton, and I used Bite again, but it didn't do much, and he paralyzed me. I tried using Razorwind, but it also didn't do much, and he took me down. I tried again, and this time I set up 2 Swords Dances instead. He didn't self-destruct, and I got him into heal range, so when I knew that he would heal, I used another Swords Dance. I got a higher roll, and took him down the next turn. Electrike is out, and I used Bite to OHKO. Next is Magneton, and once again I used Razorwind, but then I didn't outspeed, and he took me down. I did a little grinding and came back at level 36 when I learned Slash, a 70 power 1-turn move with a high crit chance. I set up 3 Swords Dances like always, and swept his entire team with Slash. The Maxi fight in Mount Chimney was easy. I'm insanely overleveled, so I expected my Deanna to be an OHKO with Slash. I did not OHKO, however, but it was a 2-hit regardless. I took out Zubat with 1. Last is Camerupt, which lived to Slash and scared me with Magnitude, but didn't do much. I took it out with another. Next is Flannery, and I don't have any water moves or rock moves, so I used Slash, hoping to sweep her team. I did just that. Her first 2 were OHKOs, but Camerupt kept getting just low enough that she used a full restore, until eventually she didn't use a full restore, and I won. Torkoal is last, and it lived 1 Slash, but a couple more, and she was down. Time for normal leader Dad. His Spinda confused me, so I used Swords Dance, and on the next turn I snapped out of confusion and took down Spinda, but slacking put me to sleep. I woke up and took him out though. Vigoroth is next, and I set up a couple Swords Dances, letting me OHKO his remaining 2. Winona time. She was a breeze, pun very much intended. I was very overleveled, so I swept most of her team with either Thunderbolt or Slash. Swablu was an OHKO with Thunderbolt. Tropius was a 2-hit with Slash. Pelipper was an OHKO with Thunderbolt. Skarmory was a little more trouble though. I kept getting her to just low enough health that she'd heal, so at a certain point, I used Bite to do about a quarter of her health so I could take her out with Thunderbolt. Last is Altaria, and I expected her to Dragon Dance, so I set up 3 Swords Dances. Unfortunately though, she did about half my health and damage because she didn't Dragon Dance. She switched to using Dragon Dance when I switched to attacking, though, and she went down to a couple of slashes. I flew to Fall Arbor Town to get the return TM, then to Verdanturf to see how my friendship with Absol was doing. I found out that it was maxed out, so I taught Absol the move Return. Return, as you probably know if you watch a lot of Pokemon Challenge runs, is a move that maxes out at 108 base power at max friendship, something you almost always get in mono Pokemon runs. Maxi time. I meant to sweep his team with Return, but I was on low health and paralyzed from the trainers, so he took me down in 1 critical takedown. On the second try, I was on full health and was not paralyzed, so I expected this to be better. I used Return, but that only did a bit more than half, so I used Bite, because while it's not very effective, it's stab and boosted by some black glasses I picked up a while ago. He healed for some reason, but Bite followed by Return took him out. Next is Crobat, and I meant to take him out with Shockwave, but somehow he outsped and confused me. I got terrible luck hitting myself in the face, and he won. Third try, I took down Mightyena with 2 returns, but not before he confused me with Swagger. Thankfully, though, I snapped out of confusion, and his Crobat, at +2 attack, was an easy OHKO. Last is Camerupt, and I meant to OHKO with Bite, because I believe he resists normal, but I didn't OHKO. I did flinch him, however, and he used a potion the next turn, but after that, he was down. Time for Psychic Leaders Tate and Liza. They require that you have 2 Pokemon since they do double battles, so I just used my fly-using HM Slave Tailo with Focus Energy, so that this can be as close as possible to a 2-on-1 battle. I used Bite right away on Xatu, taking it down. I meant to do the same thing to Claydol, but Lunatone put me to sleep, and then they did something I don't think I've ever seen enemy trainers do. They were actually smart, and used Earthquake with Claydol, hitting me, but not affecting Lunatone because it has Levitate. I have never seen AI do something that smart before. I am actually kind of impressed. I woke up, but not before they did a ton of damage to me, and yeah, I went down. Really expected this one to be easier. The next try, I gave Absol a Chesto Berry in place of black glasses, because while my dark moves will be stronger with the black glasses, I can't afford to fall asleep. I used Bite on Xatu to take it out with one hit again. They brought out Soul Rock, and I used Bite to try and take down Claydol. Unfortunately, though, it did not quite OHKO, and they healed. I did that again, but yet again that happened, so I switched to attacking Soul Rock. It went down in 2. They brought out Lunatone, so I went back to attacking Claydol. Yet again, it didn't OHKO, and they healed. I tried to take down Lunatone because it had set up a few Calm Mines, and I was worried about what that could do, but they brought me down. Man, the Psychic Gym is brutal in Mono Pokemon Emerald runs. Also, ironically, since they didn't use Hypnosis this time, I think if I hadn't gotten rid of the black glasses, I would probably have won. Man, that's that randomized Gen 3 AI for you. The third try, I went back to using the black glasses, and I used Swords Dance, so that Return could do a lot more. Once again, I used Bite on Xatu right away, and then I used Return on Claydol, trying to do some more damage, but not expecting to take it down. It did take it down, however, and now we're on to just Solrock and Lunatone. Solrock is the more offensive of the two, so I was a bit worried about it and used Return. Return did exactly what I was hoping for, taking it down to low enough health that it would use a berry, so on the next turn I could take it down with Bite. Lastly, I took out Lunatone with a few bites, nothing much to it. The multi-battle with Steven against some Magma people was annoying. I started with Swords Dance to get rid of the attack drop from Mightyana's Intimidate, and then, combined with whatever Steven's Metang did, took it out with Return. Out next is Crobat, but I'm overleveled and Camerupt had me a bit worried, so I used Bite on it, trying to take it down. It only did about a third though, so I switched to attacking Crobat. I used Shockwave, and it hit me with a pointless mean look. Next turn it was down. Metang also got Camerupt to low health. In comes another Camerupt, and the first one hit me with Takedown, not quite finishing himself off. Metang took that one out, so my Bite got redirected to an incoming Golbat. I was gonna finish it off, but yet again Steven's Metang stole my Thunder and did so for me, redirecting my Bite to a Mightyana. Camerupt used Earthquake, finishing off everyone else on the field. On the second try I used 2 Swords Dances, before trying to hit Mightyana with Return. Unfortunately though, Mightyana used Swagger, bringing me to +5 attack and confusing me. That is really bad. I hit myself and brought myself down to yellow, then one takedown brought me down to red. I took him down in the next turn, but out comes Crobat, who took me down with a single Air Cutter. Nothing happened of importance until at a certain point, it just went better. I was holding a Person Berry so I could get rid of confusion. I set up 3 Swords Dances, letting me sweep his whole team with a +6 full Friendship Return. I didn't expect to win, so sorry about the speed up. Now we're at Archie, and he led with Mightyana with Intimidate, but he didn't use Swords Dance because I was afraid of Swagger. He did use Swagger, but since I outsped, I didn't bring him down. He used a Super Potion, but those were a bit outdated, and I, after not hitting myself, took him down. Next is Crobat, and I used Shockwave expecting to OHKO. It didn't OHKO, however, and every single turn after that, I hit myself. I was down. On the second try, he didn't use Swagger, and in 2 turns, Mightyana was down. Crobat used Confuse Ray anyway, but it still took me down in a few turns. Last is Sharpedo, and after hitting myself in the face once, he went down to Return. After waking up Rayquaza in an extremely awesome animation that seriously gives me chills every time I see it, it's time for Juan. His Love Disc was an OHKO with Thunderbolt, but next is his Whiscash, who's part ground, and is thus immune to Electric. I used Return, he healed, I used Return again, he didn't heal, I used Bite, next is Celio. It was an OHKO with Thunderbolt, as was Crawdont. Last is Kingdra, who's part Dragon and thus neutral to Electric, so I used a much stronger and also neutral Return. 2 returns, and he was down. Now it's time for the last major battle before the Pokemon League, Wally. His Altaria is part dragon, so Shockwave is neutral effective, and I used Return, not quite OHKOing. I knew he'd heal, so I used Swords Dance. I then was able to take him out with Return. Next is Delcatty, and Return could OHKO again. Magneton is out now, and I used Return, which almost OHKO'd, but he didn't heal regardless, and I took him down with Bite. Next is Roselia, and it was an OHKO with Return. Last is Gardevoir, and I used Bite hoping to OHKO, but it didn't OHKO, and he healed. Once again, I brought him down to low and expected to heal, so I used Swords Dance, but then he used Double Team, so I used Shockwave, which always hits, and he's down. Here's my stats before the Pokemon League. Most of our stats are pretty good, but if they can outspeed, one strong fighting type move and I'm down. I did the new Mauville mission to get the Thunderbolt TM, because with a water type champion, I'll definitely need a strong electric type move. Cue the music. First up is Dark Trainer Sydney. He led with Mightyena, and despite Intimidate, I'm too scared of Swagger to risk Swords Dance, and I take it down with 2 returns. But not before he sets up Sand Attack. Next is Shiftry, and I use Swords Dance because I know that he doesn't have Swagger. Right when I said that, he used Swagger. Come on! He used Double Team and I kept hitting myself, so I go down. On the second try, he didn't use Sand Attack, and Mightyena went down in a few returns. Shiftry still used Swagger, but I didn't hit myself, and he was down in 2. Next is Cacturn, and I hit myself once, and then snapped out of confusion and OHKO'd. Next is Crawdaunt, though, and because of Cacturn's Cotton Spore, I was slower, and he finished me off. On the next try, I held a Persimberry, so I wasn't afraid of Swagger, set up 3 Swords Dances, and swept with Return. Next is Ghost Trainer Phoebe. She led with Dusclops and used Protect, and then I took her down with Bite the next turn. But Ned is out, and I took him down with 1 Bite. Still don't know how you pronounce that Pokemon. Third is Sableye, and it was a 2-hit with Bite. Last is another Banette, and it was, yet again, an OHKO with Bite. Last is Dusclops, and I got it to low health. It used Earthquake, doing the least amount of damage I have ever seen it due to a Pokemon hit by it. And it ate a berry, and I took it down with one Bite, since she didn't heal. 2 down, 2 to go, plus the 1 champion. Next up is Ice Trainer Glacia, and I was worried about her. I have no way of doing super effective damage, so I just have to do neutral damage to her. She led with Celio, so I used Thunderbolt to OHKO. Next is Glalie, and I did the same with Return. I tried to do the same for her next Celio, but I didn't, and she set up Hail. Then she healed. I used Return to do about half her health and damage, and finish her off. Next is her second Glalie, and I used Return, and then she countered with Ice Beam. Ice Beam froze me, but thankfully I thought out the next turn. She healed, I brought her low again, and the Hail wore off. She always tries to set up Hail, so I trusted she wouldn't heal. I was right, and Glalie was down. Last is her Walrein, and I finish her off with Thunderbolt, but I failed to, and she took me down with 1 Ice Beam. On the third try, I set up 3 Swords Dances right away, and swept her whole team with Return. Dear Helix, maxed out Friendship plus 6 attack with Return is so overpowered. Next is Dragon Trainer Drake. I don't have super effective moves for any of his team, so I went in with 3 Swords Dance boosted Return right away. Unfortunately, though, I had forgotten to heal, and he took me down with Double Edge while I was setting up. On the second try, I remembered to heal, and I did not go down right away. Annoyingly, though, he used Rock Tomb while I was setting up, lowering my speed. Shogun, though, I just outsped and OHKO'd anyway. Altaria outsped, but she just set up Dragon Dance, so I could OHKO. I was not so lucky on the Kingdra. When Kingdra said hello, he used Surf, bringing me down to only 103 health. I still OHKO'd anyway, but that had me a bit worried. Next is Flygon, and it used Earthquake, bringing me down to only 28 HP before I could take it down. Last is Salamence, and I had hoped he would try to set up, but alas, I was not so lucky, and he went down to Flamethrower. I tried again and again. JK, it was only like 2 attempts. Until eventually I got a run where I didn't get my speed lowered from Rock Tomb. Thankfully, that happened pretty fast. Funnily enough, I actually forgot to save after I healed, so I beat him with only 57 HP, and if at any point I had been slower than one of his Pokemon, I would most likely have gone down. Last is Pokemon Champion Wallace. Hey there, so, something interesting happened here. I actually forgot to record the first attempt at this fight. So, you're just gonna see what happened for the second attempt. So here's the short version for the first one. I OHKO'd Wailord with Thunderbolt. Tentacruel badly poisoned me with Toxic. I took Tentacruel down the next turn. A few turns later, I bit the dust because of poison. Are we good? There we go. Now let's pretend this never happened. On the second try, I held a Pecha Berry, since I don't use Bite all that much because of how much more powerful Super Effective Thunderbolt and +6 attack return are. I didn't OHKO Wailord this time. He set up Rain, he healed, I got him low again. He didn't heal, onto Tentacruel. I got it to half, he used Toxic, I healed Toxic with a Pecha Berry, I took him down the next turn. Next to Ludicolo, and I got it down very low with Return, and then he used Double Team, making me miss one, but then I took it down the next turn. Whiscash now, and I took it down with one Swords Dance, while he set up Calm Mind. Next, I took it down with Return. Water Onix is next, and I OHKO'd with one 4x super effective Thunderbolt. Last is Milotic, and I used Thunderbolt, which only did about a third, then he used Surf, which did way too much, landing me in red. I knew I only had one attack before he took me down, so I used Return, because I'm at +1 attack, and Max Friendship Return is extremely powerful. I did just that, and I got a crit, finishing him off. Oh, that was incredible. But we're not done yet. It's time for the secret final boss of this game, Stephen Stone. He's extremely strong, so make your final guesses if I can win. I honestly have no idea if I can win or not. All of his Pokemon resist Return, my main attacking move, and most of them also resist Bite, my only stab move. Because of that, I'm only going to try this a few times, and if I can't beat him after, let's say 5 attempts, I'm just going to stop. I really don't want to do any grinding for a post-game fight. I got into the fight, and noticed how incredibly under-leveled I am. I've been insanely over-leveled since I had to get 10 levels up on Roxanne way back at the start of the game. So to say I was shocked that his Skarmory is level 77 is an understatement. I took out Skarmory with 2 Thunderbolts. Unfortunately, though, Armaldo took me out with 2 Ancient Powers. I know I just said I wasn't going to do any grinding, but I'm going to do some grinding. I came back at level 76 with Water Pulse instead of Bite, and a Mystic Water I got from the Weather Institute cast form instead of Black Glasses. This does mean I'm getting rid of my only stab move, but half his team resists Dark. It's not like I would have used it anyway. I went for Water Pulse on Skarmory, forgetting it's not super effective. 1 Thunderbolt got him into heal range, 2 more and he was down. Next is Armaldo, and he took me down with 1 Ancient Power. I have a huge backlog of podcasts and a ton of time on my hands, so I grind up to level 97, more because I want to than to help with the fight itself. I really wish I had made a save before I taught Absol Water Pulse, though. Dealing with Phoebe when I'm grinding in the Elite Four really is a pain. At least most of the time. Back to Steven now, and I started with Thunderbolt to OHKO his Skarmory. Next is Armaldo, and I brought him to yellow with Water Pulse, then he used Ancient Power. I took him down the next turn, though. Next is Claydol, and I used Water Pulse, bringing him to half. He used Light Screen. I used Water Pulse, he used a Full Restore. I got a crit, ignoring the Light Screen, and finishing him off. Next is Aggron, and I took him down to half health with Water Pulse, and confused him. The Light Screen wore off, and he was down the next turn. Next is Cradilly, and I used Return. He used Ancient Power, I used Swords Dance, he used Ingrain. The next turn I used Return, and then he used Giga Drain. I think if it hadn't been for that Giga Drain and the Ingrain from the previous turn, he would have healed, and I would have lost. The next turn, though, he was down. Last is the pseudo-legendary of his team, Metagross. I used Return, doing about a third, and he finished me with Meteor Mash. Okay, that's it. I know there's a chance I could win if I come back at level 100 with some cool strategy or something, but I don't really care all that much. I beat Wallace, I played the credits, I don't need to beat Steven. Overall though, this run was a lot of fun. I haven't done a mono Pokemon run in a while, and though I don't find them quite as fun for the most part as doing mono type runs, this run was still a lot of fun.